Outside the Echo Chamber. I'm your host, Doug Scaff, president of HD Media, coming to you from the Frontier Studios here, home of the Charleston Gazette-Mail in your capital city, downtown Charleston. Well, Halloween is upon us, and you know it's getting scary out there, but nothing more scary than election season. The general election 2022 is just right around the corner. It seems like signs are popping up everywhere. It's that time of year. You're seeing more and more commercials, people getting their message out. And what we're trying to do with you on our show is to bring you and inform and educate the voters of the contested races. Not going to be able to get all the races, but we want to get to you and educate you on some of the highly contested races. On this edition, we're going to be talking about one particular race for West Virginia District 7, a new Senate district that was formed in southern West Virginia, covering Boone, Lincoln, Logan, and a little bit of Kanawha. And on today's show, I'm excited to be joined by our opinion editor here at the Charleston Gazette-Mail, Mr. Ben Fields. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Good to be here. Thanks.
And we've got a lot going on, don't we? This election season
is
fun. You've been really busy.
Yes, yeah. Early voting started today or yesterday, and that runs through November 5th. And so people are casting their ballots. Candidates are making the rounds, and yeah, it's
those last-ditch efforts, right?
We're coming down to it. Yeah.
Well, we have a race here today, and our other guest here sitting at the table is Dr. Ron Stallings, current senator. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Doug, thanks for having me.
So you're running in a new district, Senate District 7. You've been a senator for how long now?
Since 2016.
And
2006.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's been a few more years than that,
years.
and you've done a fantastic job in your personal practice. You know, you're a doctor by trade, and so you brought a lot of insight to the legislature. We've been trying to meet with a lot of candidates, especially those in contested races, and normally we would have candidate interviews and forums, but we're using our show in this format to help educate the voters. So before I turn it over to Ben here to start asking you questions, give us a few minutes. Tell us about your campaign, why you're running again for re-election, and what do you want the voters to know about you?
Yeah, so again, I come from Madison, West Virginia. I was born on Main Street. I practice medicine now on Main Street. I'm a son of the coal fields. Worked in the coal mines. I went to Scott High School, was in the Danville Volunteer Fire Department. Was able to, we were pretty poor. My mom died when she was young and I was 17. And so the little town wrapped its arms around me. And so I was able to go to WVU, then Marshall, and then Wake Forest in internal medicine. And then as soon as I could get back home in 1985, that's what I did. So I've been practicing medicine since 1985. And I was involved in a lot of things. I ended up being appointed to the University System Board of Trustees, where I met people like A. Michael Perry and just some awesome people. And I learned a lot. And I saw with Boone County and the region having given so much in the form of coal severance tax, and then looking around and seeing, we don't have a whole lot to show for that. And so that's why I got involved in other things, such as chairing the Corridor G Regional Economic Development Authority Board of Directors, member of the Higher Education Policy Commission, and then when Lloyd Jackson decided not to run for re-election, I said, look, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring because if not me, who? And so it's been a great run ever since, focused on three big issues, and that is our economy, and our healthcare system, and our education system. And if you know how they interact with each other, sure enough, you can't really have a great economy if you don't have a good education system and a good healthcare system, and vice versa on every one of them. The Dartmouth Atlas lights up either good or bad on all three of those things. So that's been my focus over the time, and it's like people know where I am. They come up to me at the post office, the Kroger's, wherever, and in my office. So they know that I'm a sounding board for them. They bring problems to me, and I try to fix them. And we've seen, again, with substance use disorder and poverty, some of these root causes, what's happened. So I've tried to help work on the substance use disorder, the Opioid Reduction Act, and again, focus on early childhood, because if we can't get our kids ready to learn, we're going to lose another generation. So that's where I come from.
I'm curious how how campaigning has been for you this time around in a new district that has a sliver of Kanawha County in there. It's been changed up a little bit. How's it been?
Well, again, I was relatively pleased with the redistricting. I was able to keep all of Boone, all of Logan, all of Lincoln, and that's the core of the 7th District. No longer, and I miss the folks down in Mingo and Wayne County. But in Madison, when you turn on Corridor G, you tend to turn right and come to Charleston. So, and I certainly am familiar with areas of, that used to produce a lot of coal. So the Upper Kanawha Valley is just like, Boone County in a way, in that they've given so much, don't have a lot to show for it, but we now have what I would call so much potential with the concept of post-mine land use. So now we have these tracts of land that can be developed. You all saw where the Twin Branch had a big drag strip this past weekend, and you're familiar with Hobet, and that's about to be developed. So, and that was the big goal 25 years ago with regard to the Corridor G group. Let's bring infrastructure to U.S. Route 119. Let's get infrastructure to the hills and those mountaintop removal sites, and let's just grow and diversify our economy.
A lot of people mention, economic diversity. I'm kind of curious as to what you think that looks like in West Virginia, because it's something that we say a lot, but we don't always know exactly what it looks like because we've been so dependent on extraction industries in the past. Well,
let me tell you where I come from. I saw what happens when your economy is just focused on coal. Boone County, the largest coal-producing county, Logan County, Mingo, the whole area. And when the demand for coal went south, I saw what happened. It was devastating. It absolutely hurt everyone, caused all kinds of terrible societal issues. Our Boone County economy went from a $22 million budget to down to $5 in a matter of just a couple of years. And Doug, if you remember, we had to get a special revenue source to pay the teachers in 2016. We couldn't even pay the teachers. So when I talk about diversification, I talk about these post-mine land sites. And you are familiar with solar, and Hobet has been mined out. There's no more coal there. And but there is large areas of land. So about 8 miles deep, there's a place for a 3,000-acre solar panel farm. And that's going to be a magnet because you all also know that AEP has to have so much renewable energy. And all these factories, even Nucor up in the eastern or the western part of the state, they have to have a certain amount of renewable energy. So the demand is there. And so you can have a 250 megawatt solar panel farm, and a factory wants to locate up there, and all they got to do is yep, I want some of that. They check the box, and they're automatically available to have a huge tax credit. So I think that type thing is going to be very important. I was able to get more coal severance tax back to the county of origin from 7 cents on the dollar to 12 cents on the dollar. And then I was able to get a tax credit if you locate a business on a post-mine land site. So those are all what I would call long-term efforts so that we can attract new industries and new people to what used to be the coal fields and still is. At the same time, I've always pushed for mining coal and for the gas. I've voted almost embarrassingly pro-coal on a couple bills, but I think we have a real shot to really change the outlook of our future, and largely because of this bipartisan infrastructure plan. It is meant to go into places like the 7th Senatorial District that has been highly impacted by the downturn in the coal industry, and infrastructure that up and diversify the economy. So, in fact, that's one of the reasons I wanted to run again. 16 years in the Senate, the last 5 or 6 was been in the minority, but I really think that someone with my background it needs to be there when we take the next step, this unprecedented opportunity, a chance of a lifetime to diversify our economy.
talked about education and the correlation with economics. What they call the nation's report card came out recently. West Virginia was almost last in math and reading proficiency for 4th and 8th graders. We knew we would see a drop because of COVID. They didn't test for 2 years, but I don't know that anyone knew it would be that dramatic. How does West Virginia go about improving education? And even before the pandemic, there have been problems there, teacher shortages, and just problems in achievement. How does West Virginia actually climb that ladder?
Well, there's a concept of social determinants of health, where 20% of health outcomes has to do with the healthcare system. And I would put to you that there's also social determinants of education. And so, you could have the best school teacher on the planet, but when little Johnny goes home at 3 o'clock and doesn't have support, parental support or food, anything like that, he's not going to be able to learn. So many times it's not what goes on from 7 until 3. It's what goes on from 3 until 7. So we really have to look at those social issues and fix our substance use disorder. We have to invest in early childhood education, and instead of cutting education and treating teachers poorly, we need to wrap our arms around them. And again, I voted, and I know Doug did too, for these wraparound services so that we can help fix some of our social ills in West Virginia.
Speaking of education, there's an amendment to West Virginia's Constitution on the ballot, Amendment number 4, that would give the state legislature essentially control over public education, over the state board of education, curriculum, policies, decisions. How do you feel about, tell us a little bit about what you think motivated that amendment to begin with, and then how do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, that's a scary amendment. I mean, it's, what I've learned here lately is this legislature, this supermajority, does not listen to experts, whether it's healthcare experts, whether it's education experts, and so it's scary. I mean, that is a terrible concept. I voted against it, spoke against it. The joint resolution that would put that on the ballot took 2/3 to get it on the ballot. So I was very much against that. I think in education, we ought to have an all hands on deck. We ought to listen to the experts, and certainly not have a legislative takeover of education. That concept with the current legislature is absolutely scary.
Speaking of listening to experts, of course, the biggest thing to happen here lately was the special session that resulted in a very sudden, almost total ban on abortion. There are exceptions in there, but I'm not a physician, but I look at an 8-week exception for a sexual assault victim and see that as that person might not even know they were pregnant. So that happened very quickly. You're a physician. I know that you're pro-life, at least after 20 weeks. I think that's fair. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But was there any effort to get medical experts into the Senate when this was going on? I know that you and Tom Takubo and Mike Maroney, as sort of the doctors in the room, were trying to lend some expertise to that. What happened there?
No, there were no meetings whatsoever. It was not referred to a committee. We were not able to listen to OBGYNs. We already have an obstetrical deserts in West Virginia where you can only get a baby delivered in Charleston, Huntington, Morgantown, maybe out in the Eastern Panhandle. So no, we didn't listen to them, and they told me with the way the bill's written that they shall lose their license. It's not like the Board of Medicine will evaluate them. It says they shall lose their license if they do an abortion that wasn't to save the life of the mother. And so that just puts too much pressure over them. I know for a fact that OBGYN people, doctors in West Virginia, are now in the room, the break room, talking about which states they're going to move to. As soon as my daughter finishes high school, I'm moving to somewhere. So yeah, again, I call that extreme politics, and I couldn't vote for that. Again, I'm relatively pro-life, if you would. I did vote to ban abortions after 20 weeks, but I can't be extreme. And those are really not true exceptions for rape and incest. It's not a true exception, as you pointed out,
Right.
8 weeks.
Yeah. So you have heard from medical professionals who are concerned. I mean, as this is written, this kind of, doesn't it put the state in charge of determining what's an emergency or what is life-saving?
We defined emergency. It's not the textbooks of OBGYN. We, as a legislature, defined emergency. And again, it's scary, and I did. I mean, I was their voice. I was the mouthpiece of the American College of Gynecology, and not OBGYN doctors that do elective abortions. These are people that teach med students and residents, and so they saw this as a real slap in the face, and will harm. The problem is, say you're a young family in West Virginia, you're pregnant, you want to have that baby, but you're not going to have the obstetrical care that you need due to a getting worse obstetrical desert because of this policy that we did.
Right. Another amendment on the ballot to the Constitution. There are 4. That seems like a lot to me. I'm not a historian of this thing, but that seems like a lot of constitutional amendments. Number 2 would give the legislature the power to repeal the business inventory machine tax. The automobile tax is also on there. I don't know if that was put on there as kind of a sweetener for the other thing. I understand how businesses would not love the business inventory tax, but the thing is that money goes back to counties for schools, libraries, fire, police service, things like that. How do you feel about that amendment? What do you see happening in your district if those taxes get repealed?
Again, I think if the amendment does pass, I think the current legislature will vote to remove or certainly phase out these taxes. And again, it doesn't impact the state budget, it impacts county budgets, as you mentioned. And so I think it politicizes county government and they lose control, local control. I know the majority party is always talking about local control. This is 180 degrees away from local control. So it's a real problem because they're using what I would call a pseudo surplus. The fact that we've had a flat budget for 5 years, that's not real. I mean, these agencies are being choked off right now. And so they're not functioning at a high level. Child Protective Services,
Right.
foster care. And education. So where we should be using that $1.3 billion is not to lower these taxes that we're talking about, but rather to invest that into education and to try to get these kids caught up after the pandemic. Because if we don't do that now, the cost is going to be so much higher down the road. So it's defunding counties, and I don't think the counties can handle it. Boone would lose $6 million, Logan 10, Kanawha $60 million. So how do you make that up? And my fear is it'll be a shift. It'll be a shift from rich, relatively rich people over to the average West Virginian in form of property tax down the line.
All right.
Well, hey, I know Senator Stallings, Doc Stallings, now you got to hit back to the campaign trail. You're going to get out there. We really do appreciate you coming here. Before you leave, if you could just tell us right now, here's your chance to tell why should they vote for Dr. Ron Stallings for re-election over your opponent? You're the best choice.
Again, I'm a moderate. I've been, I don't defund the police. I've done everything I can to help police, their pensions, their income, their safety equipment. I've been endorsed by the Troopers Association, the Sheriff's Association. I'm not a kind of a wingnut liberal, if you would, in that I'm a Second Amendment right person. I'm endorsed by the NRA, but by doctors, dentists, teachers, labor, physical therapists. I mean, they know me because I've been up there 16 years. And so, again, I'm going to try to bring people together. I'm going to try to do common sense legislation to help grow and diversify our economy, focus on those three big areas of the economy, our education system, and our healthcare system. And I think that's why I'm here. I love the people of West Virginia. I love the place. And I just want to help it all I can. And again, StallingsForSenate.com, and I'm on Facebook, but I would truly appreciate the voters' vote because I'm going to work hard for you.
Well, there you have it right there. You heard it from Dr. Stallings, going up for re-election to the new Senate District 7, which covers Boone, Lincoln, Logan, and Kanawha. Thank you for answering all of Ben's questions here. I know he's been anxious to ask you and learn about this race and let the voters educate themselves on who the best choice is. We're going to take a quick break, everyone, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Doc Stallings' opponent in this election for the State Senate District 7.
We know who we are, where we have been, and where we are going. Healthcare is ever-changing, and we are evolving to meet the future needs of our community. Thomas Health is honored to announce our affiliation with the WVU Health System. WVU Health System and its network of hospitals and physicians across West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania will allow Thomas Health to elevate and expand the current services we offer to this region. With broader access to specialists and subspecialists and the full support of the preeminent health system in our state, we look forward to being your first choice for medical care. Together, proudly serving our community and the state of West Virginia, today and tomorrow.
What started as the Parmar Oil Company in 1967 has grown into 116 convenience stores in 4 states. Parmar convenience stores offer monthly product specials and grab-and-go items. Located just down the street from where you live, Parmar stores are all about being your above-par convenience store. If you don't have a Parmar store near you now, you will soon. Parmar Convenience Stores, neighbors serving your community and making life a little bit easier every day.
Make sure you are informed with HD Media. We are leading the state in local, digital, and print media. We are storytellers. We focus on education, health, entertainment, politics, opinions, sports, and the outdoors through our websites, print, or social and mobile apps. We work every day to enhance the lives of our customers by informing, entertaining, and empowering our readers in the communities we serve. We are HD Media.
August 5th, 2013 was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. It turned into a nightmare.
Harmony was too big for me to pass through my pelvis. They thought the best option was to put the vacuum on her.
She begged for a C-section over and over and over. They wanted to rush through it. Once Harmony came out, it probably wasn't 5 minutes. They rushed her to NIC unit, and then her head swelled the size of a watermelon. It pretty much crushed her whole skull. Ben Salengo was recommended to us by a family friend that he had represented.
Having Ben Salengo on our side changed everything for the better.
From day one, he did everything for us. He kept in touch with us pretty much on a daily basis to let us know what was going on and even just to check on us.
It gave us closure as a family, a peace, a calming feeling over us that she can rest in peace finally.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of Outside the Echo Chamber. Thank you to Senator Ron Stallings, Dr. Stallings, for joining us on the first segment. Well, now we're going to hear from his opponent, to Mr. Mike Stewart, who's running to be the next senator of Senate District 7, the new Senate District 7 that covers Boone, Lincoln, Logan, and Kanawha. Just like in the previous session, we'll turn it over to my co-host here today, Mr. Ben Fields, and he's going to be asking the questions. But first, Mike, welcome to the set.
Thank you very much for having me.
So Come and tell us. This is your chance. Why Mike Stewart for Senate District 7? Why should the voters support Mike Stewart?
Well, it's a long answer, but I'm going to give you the short answer.
Short answer. There you go.
But gosh, I can tell you that from the time, growing up in that holler, literally, and there's some folks going, boy, he's embellishing. No, I'm not embellishing. Go back, you can see the pictures. But growing up in that holler with my grandma and grandpa, Grandma Opal, Grandpa Bud, and I still can picture my grandpa sitting in that recliner next to that coal-burning fireplace. And on the mantle, and it's a big Democrat family. And listen, in my family, there weren't any Republicans. You couldn't be a Republican. That would get you in big trouble Sunday dinner. But on that mantle was a bust of John Kennedy. I don't think it was so different than a lot of families in West Virginia.
That's true.
And you could touch anything you wanted in that little white house with that tin roof in that holler. But you couldn't touch the bust of John Kennedy. My grandpa, who had served on the beaches of Normandy, who was a coal miner. Gosh, my dad was a coal miner for over 50 years. But you could touch anything you wanted in that house. But if you touched the bust of John Kennedy, my grandpa got younger and faster and healthier. And that fire poker could find you. And my cousin got it pretty good. I bring that up because, gosh, I grew up in that holler with my grandma, grandpa, big family. And if you sat on the front porch, you could look across at that acid mine drainage creek that ran orange. And up on the hillside, and I can picture it just perfectly, was a coal tipple and all those fines of coal where it had not been reclaimed. We grew up incredibly poor. I had no idea how poor we were at the time. I have a big family, over 64 grandkids on my dad's side. I'm the oldest of all those grandkids, many which still live in that holler up in Barber County today. Only about 5 of us even have a college degree. I'm the only one with an advanced degree. You don't need an advanced degree to be successful. But I was just lucky, I think, and I've worked hard, and I've been in the right place at the right time. And I got to tell you, I was one of those kids growing up where people said, you can't do that, right? That was the life I grew up, and many people all across West Virginia grew up in the same life. You can't do that. You can't get a college degree. Right? Nobody in our family does that. You can't become the Republican chairman. You're from a big Democrat family. You can't co-chair Donald Trump's campaign for president in 2016. Did that, check. You can't become the United States attorney. That's never going to happen. Well, we did it. We did it pretty well. And when redistricting happened, and I can tell you, being U.S. attorney wasn't on my top 10 list of things to ever do, but when I take on a challenge, I want to do it well. Being in the state Senate was never on my top 10 list of things to do. But I know the role it plays and how important it is to the lives of people. When redistricting happened and they drew me in to Lincoln, Logan, Boone in the southern portion of Kanawha County, it was exciting to me. It was exciting that I could go back into public service, and that's what being U.S. attorney is. And gosh, is there a district that has suffered harder from the decline of coal? If you travel down to Madison, Danville, go to Harts, Hamlin, go to Logan, go to Man, Van, you go right through my district and you see heartache from West Virginia. The economy's been difficult. You know, since 2006, my district's lost 50% of its tax base and 35% of its people. That's a tough challenge. We have to begin to grow again. I've had a really solid record during the course of my career. I say I'm the luckiest guy in the world. But the story's not done yet. I think we can do some really important things. And being U.S. attorney, I had a big record. Nobody had ever prosecuted a member of the state Supreme Court. I prosecuted 2 of them. I wasn't like putting chits on my belt when I prosecuted folks. And that whole drug epidemic, the opioid crisis, the moms and dads that I had to embrace during that period of time, I carry in my pocket. If you ever see me out, if any of your viewers see me out, challenge me on this. I carry this thing every single day. And it's filled with the faces of the victims of the opiate crisis. And I can tell you the story behind every one of these people in detail. And we could spend a long time talking about this. But these are truly, I carried these while I was U.S. attorney, and this wallet got full and fuller and more full. But the moms and dads, right, these beautiful people are never coming back. They made mistakes. They went down the path of drugs. These aren't drug dealers. These are folks who are victims of the opioid crisis. But I got to know their moms and dads, and they have actually provided me ideas for solutions. But these are the pictures that my wife will tell you, they haunt me in the dark of the night. And I think about these young people, and some not so young, I think about them all the time. We owe it to them, we owe it to their families to actually find solutions to the opioid crisis and the drug epidemic. We've been talking about this thing since before any of us were born. We failed in the war on drugs, but we need a war on the drug cartels. There are solutions here, and we need to get serious about it. But Victoria Douglas, her mom Melody, I can tell you that story. It is a painful story. I think about it all the time, about those two little nieces running into the bed and pulling those sheets down and finding a dead aunt, and for mom to run in there and find her daughter blue and stiff with a cell phone over her heart. And Melody Douglas had the courage to do something I would never have the courage to do. She knew something bad had happened to Victoria. She took that cell phone and pried it from her dead daughter's stiffened hand. And then she took her dead daughter's stiffened thumb and unlocked that cell phone. It let us prosecute this guy who had sold her heroin, a friend, in quotes, right? I always put the fake friends are in quotes. We know who those people are.
Yeah.
Real friends are people who keep you out of the gutter, keep you out of trouble. They want you to succeed. It's the fake friends that get us in trouble in life. So long story short, I fell in love with the people of West Virginia a long time ago. And my wife will tell you, I'm not one of those folks that sort of hangs out on the corner and maybe is a member of the club. I work a lot. I have a pretty strong work ethic. And listen, I came from the other side of the tracks. We never believed growing up in that house where we didn't have clean running water and we brought in gallon jugs. All of this is verifiable. We never believed any politician, Republican or Democrat, was ever going to do anything to make our lives better. We didn't believe it at all. But I do believe that there are noble politicians, I think more often than not. And I do believe we can make a huge difference in people's lives. During the course of this campaign, I can tell you, as I've traveled throughout this district, I get messages all the time from folks. They're hurting. The inflation factor, interest rates, but the economy. We have to get to the point of growth. I know my opponent can talk about healthcare ad infinitum, forever. We can bandage it together for a little period of time to make sure our rural hospitals don't close on us. If we don't start growing again, if we don't start investing in Madison and Danville and Logan and Mandan and all those towns, we're going to die, right? The social fabric's being tested. We have real challenges in the district. I have a record of getting big things done. I had a big record as U.S. Attorney. Listen, I'm a passionate guy. I'm a solid, dark roast cup of coffee. I'm not everybody's flavor. But we have work to do. And there has to be a sense of urgency to getting things done. And so my style may not be everybody's style. But I think my job is not to go to Charleston representing my district and tell my district what's best for them. My job is to go to Charleston listening to the folks, my constituents, and help them be successful. Most people want to be successful. They want their kids to do better in school. They want crime to be lower. They want upward mobility. They want good jobs. And there's a real dearth of the opportunity for this to happen in my district. You guys know it, and I know it. It's one of the poorest districts in West Virginia, and by extension, one of the poorest districts in the country.
Well, Mike, let me ask you. So, we talk about population loss that's happening everywhere in West Virginia, and you mentioned the specific number in your district, and we talk about economics. So, what are some of the solutions? Talking about those issues.
Yeah, so I've put out a 10-point plan. So I don't think we can just talk about the problems. It'd be real easy for me to look at my opponent's record. And listen, I've made no secret that I think there are big differences between my opponent's view and my view. I'm a conservative, no question about it. But I've put out a 10-point plan. Well, let me give you some examples of what's in that 10-point plan. We have to make real investment in these communities. We need investment programs for entrepreneurs. Listen, this has become a real challenge around West Virginia. I used to head up at one point, gosh, I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but Vision Shared was a great building tool for our state at one point. and then they transformed it. It doesn't work as well. But I was the chair of the entrepreneurship committee of A Vision Shared. We need to start to inspire, and we've got to get this in our schools at very young ages. Like, keep in mind, we're a state where you grew up, what company do I work for? We weren't a state where we said, what company do I start? Right? We got to start forming companies. But beyond that, we need swamp reform. Listen, folks may disagree with me on that. When I say swamp reform, when's the last time you ever saw the Ethics Commission refer for prosecution anyone? Can you name anybody? How about PSC reform? Our utility rates are skyrocketing. I've actually studied the rest of the states in the country. Not all the PSCs are set up like ours are, where you have an appointed board that serves for a period of time. They have a great relationship with the utility companies. Listen, I'm not blaming them for soaring utility rates. We live in a period of time where we have soaring utility rates. But I think it's important that people have a role on that commission. I think we got to put teeth in our ethics laws. I think we need to rein in the lobbyist groups. Listen, I think we've got to get our hands around the opioid crisis. And we've got to quit. I was in a meeting with the Attorney General of the United States of America and 93 other U.S. attorneys in some conference room in Washington, D.C. at the end of my term. You know what we were talking about? How do we start to get our hands around the opioid crisis? And I got to be honest, I raised my hand and I said to the Attorney General of the United States, I said, you know, I fear 100 years from now, there are going to be a bunch of U.S. attorneys and a United States Attorney General sitting in some conference room in D.C. talking about how do we get our arms around the opioid crisis. We got to get serious about it right now. Now, my solution is we need to love this. We need to expand rehab and treatment. Good rehab and treatment. There's some bad stuff popping up right now. And anytime you have a flood of money, there'll always be bad stuff pop up. But we've got to expand rehab and treatment. And there's some good things happening in Boone, some good things happening in Logan. They're expanding into Lincoln. And we're sort of behind here in West Virginia. But we got to get tougher on drug dealers. This idea of, and like I said, we may disagree on some of these things, but cashless bail, that bail reform bill, listen, I disagree with some of the folks in my own party on that. We got to start getting tougher. My solution to prison overcrowding, I make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Build another prison. Bad guys need to be behind bars. The jail bill, I'll disagree with some of my counterparts on this too. The jail bill should never be the responsibility of counties. Why? Because, and you know this, there becomes a disincentive to keep bad guys locked up. Listen, bad guys need to be behind bars. We can't have counties managing their budget at the expense of having bad guys back on the streets. The jail bill needs to come to Charleston. Why? It matters. If a magistrate's letting somebody out for a little bit of meth in Logan, people have cars. They travel. They could end up here in Charleston. So we as West Virginians need to make sure we're aware of these challenges. And we need income tax relief. We need personal property tax relief. We got to put money back into people's pockets. So the solution is broad, it's big, but we got to stop dreaming little. We got to stop managing the chairs on the Titanic. We got to stop being happy with those few crumbs we got on the table. We got to start investing for the future. And I'm just one of those people that the way I grew up with virtually nothing, and a dad who went to work in the dark and came home in the dark to do it 7 days a week. Gosh, I told my daughters when they went off to college, I was one of those dads. We got a great relationship. But I wrote them each a letter and I packed it in their luggage. And I wanted them to find it later. And when I dropped them off at college, heck, I remember when my dad didn't drop me off at college. He was like, good luck. Right? Good luck, we'll see you later. And I paid for all my college. But with my daughters, I wanted to point out to them, they've done well. They don't use drugs, to my knowledge. They've been very successful. But I don't want them to think for a minute that their success was on the backs of only their work. I told them this, and I mean this. Go out there and fight hard. Be successful, but don't you think for a minute that your success didn't come off my shoulders, your grandpa who went to the mines every day, his shoulders, your grandfather's shoulders. Building a family's hard in America today. It's a real challenge. And so I think it's important we spend time to raise our youth. And my final point on building our communities, we don't invest in our schools enough. I'll be the first to tell you, I want to pay good teachers a lot more This sort of 5% increase every year, it's not enough, right? They can't keep up with inflation. But we need reforms in place in the school system. So if you look at the bureaucracy that's involved, and I can talk about this for a long time, these schools are darn important. My kids went to public school. They didn't go to private school, and they did darn well. Why? Because we as parents were engaged with them all the time. So when we look at the bureaucracy, how many of your viewers know that our state superintendent of schools pulls down a salary of $230,000 a year? Now, some
I
people
hope a lot of them know because we point it out quite a bit. But
it's really important. But let me just follow this up real quick,
Okay, yep.
which is, how about in the state of Virginia? You know what they pay their superintendent?
actually, I don't.
$179,000 a year for a school system that's 10 times as large. How about the state of Ohio? It's even larger, 1.8 million students. They pay their state superintendent of schools that are equivalent to that, $210,000 a year. Listen, I think it's important we put resources in the classroom, we invest in our kids, we let our teachers teach, and we focus on ABCs, reading, and math. That's what we have to focus on today. Those test scores were tough.
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, actually, we were just
We were gonna ask you
ready to get into that, especially as it pertains to there. You know, you hit on tax relief and you hit on education. There are two constitutional amendments going on right now. One, Amendment 2, would give the legislature the power to grant a lot of personal property tax relief, but it might come at the cost of funding education. And then there is Amendment 4, which would put the legislature almost in charge of education. How do you feel about those amendments? And as far as tax cuts go, you actually mentioned both income and personal property.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. We're
which-
being sold a false promise here.
Which, yeah, I mean, members of your own party are butting heads about right now. So
Keep
how
in mind the
does
difference.
tax relief work where schools are still okay? And then, you know, how does education work if the legislature is running it?
So let me hit your last point there. It's not okay that our schools are just okay, right? We've got to sprout. It's a tough world out there. You know, West Virginia, we're not competing with Ohio anymore. We're not competing with Kentucky. We're competing with Asia. We're competing with Europe. We've got to be the best. We need to redesign and refocus and rebuild our education system. We need to bring the best and brightest together, not only from West Virginia. Keep in mind, there's a little bit of that out there. Like, what do you mean you brought in people from outside West Virginia? Are you kidding? I rebuilt the U.S. Attorney's Office. I recruited the best attorneys from California to Massachusetts and everywhere in between. Why? We got to hire the best. We got to quit letting people say, but it's only West Virginia. My mom and dad used to say it all the time. You hear it all the time. It's only West Virginia. Stop it. Stop it. We can be the best in the country. So on Amendment 2, I think it's important we pass that. And here's why. Nothing happens if we pass it, but we begin the discussion. We begin the debate. This idea that somehow automatically our schools get crushed, our county budgets get hurt, stop it. All right? I live in my district. I care about our public schools. I don't think we should be cutting. We need to be investing. There's a difference between just throwing money at a problem and saying, we solved it. This is Washington's solution to most things. We've got a problem. Let's throw $80 billion more at it. We've gotten to the point now we can't even fathom what the numbers are. We can't even imagine what $80 billion look like, and I'm just throwing out a number. But you know this. You've seen it all the time. We need to start structurally fixing the issue. That means we got to bring the stakeholders together. Teachers, folks who work on the state school board, experts in education, our union leadership. Like, when's the last time you heard a Republican say that? Listen, I'm very comfortable in my own skin on these issues. I'm not looking for the solution from other folks. I know that for the most part, I don't care if it's the union leadership, our teachers, our parents, we all want the same thing, which are better schools for our kids. Amendment 2 lets us begin the discussion. And I don't think, this is not going to be we pass Amendment 2, and I don't think we come into session and immediately check the box, all those taxes are gone. Listen, I think there are a lot of Republicans and Democrats and stakeholders around the state that want to have an honest, good discussion about this. We all want our state to grow again. Quit managing the chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah.
When it comes to Amendment 4, this idea that it's a legislative power grab, I just disagree with that. I think there's no better place than the legislature, who have all been elected by folks in their districts, House of Delegates every 2 years. So if your delegate gets out of line and goes down the wrong path, you're going to throw her or him out of office in 2 years. There's no closer place than the legislature to have a check over the Board of Education. Some of your viewers may not know this, but right now the state school board has power over a whole bunch of things. And I'm not attacking the school board. These are really good people. Paul Hardesty, I think, is doing a good job. It's a real challenge right now. And you get numbers like we got from the testing. I'm not blaming the shutdowns from COVID. There were a lot of problems leading into COVID. We had terrible test scores before COVID happened and we shut down our schools. My point is this. We need to be having these vigorous discussions all across our state. And I'll take it one step further. It shouldn't just be the legislature having these. If I win this race, and gosh, and the best ideas I have, I steal them from people who reach out to me and say, this is a good idea. On my Facebook page a few days ago, some guy said, and if Stuart wins, he's going to have town hall meetings all across the district. Yes, we are. It's a great idea. We ought to be getting back closer to voters so voters can tell us what they think and what they like and what they need. We've gotten too isolated in Charleston. There is a swamp in D.C., but I can tell you, and you guys know it, you may not admit it, there's a swamp in Charleston.
Right,
and we've got to
Mike.
rein in on this stuff.
Yeah, Mike, we're going to wrap up here because
Sure.
we want to cautious of our time, but you hit on a lot of things right here. So differentiating your campaign, you talked about local control versus Charleston, you talked about the swamp, you talked about this. So if you could summarize right now, why you're the best choice and why you're not just going to go with the flow when you get to Charleston if you're elected.
Gosh, so there's so many
Well,
issues.
we got a
And
minute.
I
We
know
got a minute. We got a
We've
minute.
got a minute. But I mean, let's look at domestic violence. Nobody's done anything about that. It's a misdemeanor to beat your wife twice in West Virginia before it's a felony. Fix it day one. The opioid crisis, we got to get serious about it. But in 1 minute, I would tell you this. It's very simple. I'm a conservative, and I think that your elected representative, your senator, should reflect your values. I'm not dissing or picking on my opponent. He's been there for 16 years. 16 years. And we've lost 50% of our tax base, 35% of our people. I think it's time for a change. It's time to let some new energy flow in. It's time for us to rebuild. And my values reflect the people of my district. My opponent, it's not even close. And I understand he disagrees, whether it's dismemberment abortion, whether it's needle exchanges, whether it's term limits. Listen, he can support all those things. I think we need term limits. We shouldn't have politicians serving forever. I think needle exchanges, I have personal experience with that. Those needles were used as weapons against our police. I value life. I think somebody should be fighting for the unborn. And we can go through a whole list. So the biggest difference is he believes the solutions happen from government. And I can tell you, I'm just not saying it. It's not an attack. Go back and look at his record over 16 years. All of his proposals are steeped in big government and big government dollars. I believe our solutions start in our towns like Madison and Danville and Whitesville. Travel through my district and you'll see exactly what I mean. Hills and hollers filled with the brightest, smartest people you'll ever see in your life, but who have been given a tough chance. I think they want to fight again. I think they want to win again. I think they want their kids to win again. I think they want a brighter future. And we're not going to get that by continuing down the same path. I'm prepared to roll up my sleeves and get to work. I don't need the title of state senator. Gosh, I was the U.S. attorney. I want to get work done. I want to build. And if I don't do the job, fire me in 4 years. We're not getting married. It's just a matter of letting me have a chance to fight for you.
There you go. Former U.S. Attorney Mike Stewart, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks
Good
very
luck
much.
in your upcoming election. It's right around the corner. The new Senate District 7 for Lincoln, Boone, Logan, and Kentucky.
Great people and a great district.
Great people, great district. Well, you heard it right there. Hey, we're going to take a quick break when we wrap up on this edition of Outside the Echo Chamber.
The West Virginia State Building and Construction Trades is a group of local construction trades unions and their members who work in West Virginia and the border counties of our neighboring states. We promote education and safety on job sites through our 13 registered apprenticeship programs, which are training the workers of today to construct the roads, buildings, industrial plants, and bridges of tomorrow. The West Virginia State Building and Construction Trades, building a better future for West Virginia.
Looking for a friendly bank that you can turn to in your community? Bank where the decisions on your needs are made locally. With online banking and 7 locations. Poca Valley Bank, where relationships matter.
Todd Judy Ford is the best place to sell or trade your car.
We know people want a fair deal, so we're proud to be a participating dealer in Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer.
You can get an offer to purchase your vehicle even if you don't buy one from us.
If you want to trade, we'll give you up to 130% of book value for your car, and you can choose from the best selection in the area.
With deals like this, why wait to upgrade to the car of your dreams?
Just go to ToddJudyFord.com and see for yourself.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Wow, we had a lot to take in today. We are thick into the election cycle. We're 1 week away where you, the voter, can decide. That's why we call this show Outside the Echo Chamber. We're not going to tell you who to vote for. You have to make your own decision. We tried to bring both candidates here for Senate District 7 and let you decide. They talked about how they were different on economic diversity, the opioid crisis, the abortion issue, local control. You heard their differences on Amendments 2 and 4. But now it's up to you to decide the voter. Outside the Echo Chamber, brought to you here from the Frontier Studios in downtown Charleston, home of the Gazette-Mail. You can see on the screen there. Contact us, Outside the Echo Chamber at hdmediallc.com. Big shout out to Ethan and the gang here at the Media Center for bringing this production to you today. Check us out on all our websites, Charleston Gazette-Mail, HeraldDispatch.com. We look forward to the next episode on Outside the Echo Chamber, where we continue to educate you, West Virginia, on all that's happening. Have a great day, everyone.